Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk. Today I thought it would be a good idea to take a break from the politics of our day-to-day lives and examine perhaps a more transcendentalist picture. If you couldn't tell from the title, I've been rereading Henry David Thoreau's Walden. If you haven't read the book, you should. Published in 1854, the American writer sets off to record his experiences living in a small English cottage by Walden Pond. I think there's a lot to appreciate in this work, even if Thoreau approaches the idea of living a simple life with a sort of live to the beat of your own drum perspective. If there's one thing that Mr. Thoreau and I can certainly appreciate, regardless of the differences in our views, is that there's a great spiritual and physical benefit to taking the time to appreciate the great outdoors and its natural beauty. And before I get too further into today's talk, as for the fishing, I'm using two Zebco 33s, one I bought last month and the other I've had for well over 15 years. Canadian night crawlers and shiner minnow lures are what's being used today. A special catfish catch was also caught on camera for you all. So with all that being said, let's get into it. For many of us, especially now for the last year, given what's been going on in various nations across the globe with their laws, we've turned quickly to the depreciating wilderness that is the World Wide Web. Social media for many for the last year was our escape from the mundane day-to-day life of social distancing, reading the news reports, and so on. Of course, that came with its own consequences. It was our method of communication, maintaining a social life, even if it was a simulacra of one. Finding ourselves barred from the day-to-day activities that made up our ordinary everyday lives. In doing so, many became detached from reality, whether that was purposefully doom-scrolling down on Twitter and other social media or news pages, getting into online arguments or making response videos because one had nothing better to do with their time, or at least in their minds. And something that I've seen with my own eyes during all of this extra time online is the phrase, touch grass. Now, I'm sure you've seen it before, and if you haven't, then God bless you for not being on that side of the internet for a good chunk of your time for the last 12 or 13 months or so. But the phrase touch grass has no single set definition, or at least one that I've seen, so I'll provide a few based on my observations of the phrase I've seen it being used online. 1. That one spends too much time online, so just go outside. 2. Come back and tune in to Earth. The opinions and views you have aren't congruent with reality. 3. Said in a derogatory fashion, like get off the thread or get off the forum and go outside and go away. 4. You're taking things to a logical conclusion that one wouldn't see in reality, or at least within the normal Overton window of our political discourse. Now, there are probably more concrete definitions for the phrase, but all of the ones that I've mentioned so far have some degrees of truth to them. However, the one I think that we should consider is the one I'm planning to put forward to you all. That we should take the phrase and its meaning into our own hands, and have it mean something along these lines. It is important not to view everything through an ideological or lens of political philosophy, and to take the necessary time to appreciate what's in front of you. To go outside, enjoy the greenery and the scenery, and get away for a while. Essentially, I'm asking you to find your own Walden Pond. This isn't some call to revert back to some archaic or primitive lifestyle, but to ground yourself in the beauty that is our natural world. One in which is far more enchanting, beneficial, and helpful to your own health than the world that we often trap ourselves into online. There is no good that can come from perpetually doom-scrolling or reading up on misery porn online, whether that be on social media or just browsing the internet. Much like listening to depressing music when you're down, it may feel good, sure, but what are you really accomplishing other than extending one's own melancholy? I don't need to document at great length the benefits to one's health for taking some time out of your day to be in the outdoors and fresh air. Thoreau said it best in Walden, quote, "We need the tonic of wildness. At the same time that we are earnest to explore and learn all things, we require that all things be mysterious and unexplorable, that land and sea be indefinitely wild, unsurveyed, and unfathomed by us because unfathomable. We can never have enough of nature." End quote. Even if you're in the cities, the burbs, or even lucky to be out in the countryside like myself, there is a vast benefit to grounding oneself back to the bounty and beauty of the great outdoors. Even in this time of pestilence, both of actual ailments and our social ills, I'm reminded of Theodore Roosevelt, whose early years and youth were spent with all sorts of sickness and malaise, but had rebuilt himself and crafted himself into the man that he was by spending more and more time outside and working the land around him. To provide a more contemporary context, if someone like me, who battles daily with renal failure waiting for a kidney, can work on a garden, fish, hike, and take care of himself, then imagine the benefits it can provide to you, dear listener, whom I would safely assume is much healthier than myself. Your blood pressure and stress levels will thank you after spending a few hours hiking this weekend, or sitting back with a fishing rod in your hands and just letting the day go by. Speaking of fishing, by finding your own Walden, you can take the time to re-hone or learn a skill that you've been meaning to do, and to learn. To reconnect with our inner outdoorsman and naturalist, something that for so many of us has gone by the wayside as something of an older, vanished time. After years of living in cities across the country and the world, this quaint lifestyle I'm now living has given me the chance to relearn some basic fisherman skills, which I now use to make these Real Talk videos. I'm by no means a pro, but if my amateurish castings can bring me some peace on the weekends, then I hope it can do the same for you. I say all of this because there is an innate harm to viewing everything through a political or ideological lens. To do so would be to ask you to view everything in ways that your ideology or political philosophy doesn't necessarily have an answer for or was designed to view through things. I'll hear things in the comments and messages about, well, what is X view on Y, or how would X deal with this particular issue? And depending on the question being asked, sure, that's an absolutely applicable and appropriate question. But not for everything. To do so severely deprives you of your ability to enjoy life in the company of those around you and physically in front of you. Family and friends, while often like-minded, aren't worth viewing as pure political animals and machines. Most often, they're not. The constant use of the political or ideological framing detaches you further from reality that can't always be explained by the views that we often hold. The world is a vast array of contradictions, a plethora of mysteries, and things are often exactly as they seem to be. So as I throw out another line, remember that we cannot go back to some pre-internet days, living in our log cabins and enjoying the bounty of the outdoors. Thoreau's time has long passed us, but that does not mean that we can ignore or forget our experiences of that time either. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't take the time out of your schedule to go on a walk, find a local park or wildlife refuge, and admire what's right before your very eyes on this earth. While we all have work to do, whether that's our jobs, political activism, our writings, and our art, taking the time to step back, decompress, and care for yourself and those around you will reward you in the long run. So, the next time that you're 30 replies deep on a Twitter thread, or up late scrolling with nothing better to do, remember the next time you hear those words, touch grass, and take the time to find yourself your own Walden. You don't need to hide away for 2 years in a cabin living off the land to better yourself, but taking 2 hours out of your weekend to appreciate nature and to get away from the world will do wonders. You'll thank me later, I promise. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you all for watching, and I think I'll let the video just play out a little bit longer and let you all just enjoy some sights of nature and the pond that I go fishing in from time to time. More videos to come, and of course, if you're interested in this kind of work, the links below in the description will show you my Twitter, my Telegram, and if you're really interested, my Subscribestar. As always, a like and a share would be greatly appreciated, and tune in this Sunday, as I am always on Sundays, with the Sunday Stream, a show covering political events, political affairs through an international relations and geopolitical lens, allowing you to have a greater understanding of the world around you. As always, this is the Prudentialist, letting you know that things are going to be alright. Touch grass and enjoy the great outdoors. And I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.